Hey guys! In part 9 of our building components, we're going to make sure that the currently planned building part can't collide with another mesh and then be built. We will use a box collision for this, as our meshes are blocky and therefore perfect for this. However, if your meshes are more complicated, you should use sphere traces or a line trace at each end of your mesh so that the check works better. First of all, however, we make sure that our rotation function from the last part becomes a custom event in our building component. This way we have everything organized in a blueprint and can also use this function in other things, such as in a widget in which you then have different buttons with different rotation rates. In addition, we create an input for the custom event in which we can determine the rotation rate ourselves, and is therefore less hard-coded than before, as we would have had to use a separate variable there in order to use it elsewhere afterwards. However, this consumes unnecessary memory and is therefore worse for the game performance, even if the impact is initially very small. Now all we have to do is call the function in the player blueprint using the building component reference. This means we have less code in the player, and it generally looks much clearer. In addition, we now use a different button for the interaction function, as custom events cannot have multiple execution pins, which means that the interaction cannot be checked after the false pin from the rotation. It is possible to play the interaction function after the start rotation function, but this means that every time we rotate the building part, an interactive object is also searched for at the same time, which costs a lot of performance due to the line trace channel. Next, we create a function to check whether there is anything inside the building part, be it a wall, a floor, or something else. For this, we use a trace by channel box. This requires a start and end location, which we get from the component bounds function of our build ghost. This returns various values from the static mesh component, which we use for our box trace. For the half-size input, we use the box intent from the component bounds, but we have to divide this by 1.2. Otherwise, the floor will collide with the building part, and it will no longer be possible to build. So, if this is the case, you have to increase the number here until you can build normally again. This makes the box a little smaller than the mesh itself. We use the output from the trace by channel box for the output from the function, so that we can also use the result outside of this function. This allows us to decide afterwards whether we can place the building part or not. If this turns out to be false, we can continue to place the building normally as nothing will collide with the mesh. However, if the result is true, then we set the material to red and make it clear that the building cannot be placed at this point. This is the end of the tutorial. I hope it has helped you with your project. I would be very happy if you could rate this video and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any more tutorials on this channel. See you then.